Welcome to my Human Factors in Artificial Intelligence course project. The first item for the project was a task analysis. Describe the problem you have selected. Software development teams consistently have more work than they have capacity. They don't have enough time to think through items, evaluate whether they have all the information they need to get started, and often start work on items with user stories being missing, incomplete, and inaccurate. This leads to miscommunication. This leads to lack of asking for help out of fear, possibly. Ultimately, costly mistakes, bugs, and rework occur due to this missing information. Identify the key task associated with the problem and perform a basic task analysis. The key task is writing user stories for a product backlog item. Typically, the team, BA or PO, and a combination of these is possible, will write the user stories based on customer needs. They will write it based on the value that will be created rather than output or, what is a checklist of tasks that I need to complete as a developer. These user stories are entered into a project management tool such as Jira. They are put into a product backlog, and more information is added afterwards. And then they're slated for a sprint. State your insights from the task analysis regarding how you might be able to simplify the task flow or improve the user's experience with the task. Very often, the task is not done or done very poorly in the first place because the team and the members don't have time to spend working. They have very tight deadlines that are dictated to them. What my tool would allow them to do is put in specific business requirements and other information, and an AI will generate user stories for the team to work on. The team then can analyze these stories, see if they meet the definition of done, make sure everything is accounted for when thinking through a feature, and add any stories that may be missing to make their backlog more complete. Number 2 is user experience design. Explain how the user will interact with your proposed solution. The user will use best practices for prompt engineering and enter information into a generative AI input. The AI will respond to the prompt based on the large number of data the model has been trained on and generate a list of user stories for epics and/or features. Describe your approach to each of the following key considerations of AI product user experience design. Number 1, user inputs and feedback loops. The user will enter information into a prompt, and we will collect feedback explicitly through direct user feedback of the quality and completeness of the outputs. We will also collect feedback implicitly, where the tool tracks the pattern of follow-up prompts that are needed. Number 2, the transparency on the model. We will let the user know this is a generative AI tool. We will let them know what the purpose of this tool is, where the data originated that was used for the model to be trained, what it can expect of the outputs, and what additional work they may need to do after they receive the outputs. Number 3, communicating uncertainty. Since this is not a classification model, there really isn't much uncertainty to communicate. The machine is just spitting out user stories, and the team decides whether they want to use them or not. Number 3 is privacy considerations. Explain any privacy-related concerns stemming from the data you collect and your use of the data in an AI system. Naturally, there would be privacy concerns surrounding proprietary company information being entered into an open AI system. For this reason, this must be an internal company tool that is trained on company and possibly outside data. But it is for company use only, and it is not open to the general public. There needs to be a great attention to detail concerning end-to-end cybersecurity, as company data and IP will be fed into this model. Describe which privacy laws are applicable to your product and what obligations they create for you. There's no personal identifiable information that will be entered into this model. So there's no concern for FIPS, HIPAA, GDPR, or CCPA. Ethical considerations is number 4. Identify the main potential sources of bias you anticipate. Training data that doesn't account for certain groups, such as elderly, people with disabilities, etc. Ultimately, different people will use a screen or a website differently, and we need to make sure that's accounted for. Also, training data that is demographic based, such as, as a woman, I do fill in the blank so that I can fill in the blank, will lead the model to stereotype these groups and write stories to develop features with these biases. It could lead the model to believe women behave in a certain way, and that will be baked into the model. Explain how your product will meet the 3 goals of ethical AI. Fairness, the user story input is either demographic free and generic, for example, using user, reader, online shopper, or if there is data that includes a demographic attribute such as age or race or gender, sexual orientation, make sure all demographics are well represented. Accountability. Someone is responsible for the outcome of the model. They monitor the quality of the outputs, the user stories, and get feedback from users that indicates how often the model is generating valuable and effective user stories, and that all aspects of the EPIC feature have been accounted for. The outputs are also regularly screened to make sure they are free from bias. Transparency. There is documentation that explains what data is used to train the model, what features have been tested, kept, removed, and why, how often the model is retrained, and what steps have been taken to remove bias both proactively and reactively. Here is a very high-level user story generator demo. This is what the screen would essentially look like. It would say, enter your business requirements below, and the user would enter the information into that top box. The bottom box is where the user stories will be generated. So as a user, I enter this. Act as a developer. I am building an e-commerce platform to purchase ice cream from an online shop using the Gherkin method. As a user, I want to action so that I can outcome, write 10 user stories for features that I would need to build my site, including all roles that might use it. So this is a very high level, easy example. I tried to take all the technical aspects of it so it's simple to understand. So here's some examples of user stories that the AI might generate. As a customer, I want to browse different flavors and categories of ice cream so that I can find the ones I like. As a seller, I want to create and edit ice cream products so that I can offer them to customers. As a customer, I want to rate and review ice cream products I bought so that I can share my feedback and experience with other customers and the seller. So the team can look at these stories, decide which ones they think are really well written, and they can discard the rest. They could write them back into the prompt section right there and see if it can generate ones that are even better, or indicate to the AI, hey, you missed stories about this particular thing. Can you write some stories about this? Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your feedback.